All right, everyone. Theresa May, the glorious leader of the United Kingdom, has launched a response to the Islamic terrorist attacks in London. You see, her response is quite simple. Oh, we need to crack down on the internet and issue more regulations so that hate speech and things like that are removed more adequately. Oh, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook need to do more to remove that inconvenient speech. Surely this will work. It's, those last rounds of regulations we've already launched on the internet have worked wonders for stopping violence. No, they haven't. This is what I spoke about yesterday when I said, weighing in on the UK's election, it doesn't really matter whether Theresa May or this Corbyn fellow, it doesn't really matter which one wins because they're both screwballs. This is supposedly a conservative individual, I get people were referring to her as a Blairite or something like that, saying, I know how to stop Islamic terrorism and Islamic extremism. We'll just regulate the internet more. Ha ha ha, that'll work. It's not going to work. It's not going to stop a single attack. It's like here, our government's response in the wake of 9/11 was largely geared towards spying on everybody. And it doesn't work. There's simply not enough manpower to actually police all of the content that you're trying to conduct surveillance on anyway. The former head of the NSA himself, who is a police statist, says, our data collection doesn't work. Because when we try to sort through it, the algorithms can do a little, but ultimately we have to go through a lot of it by hand. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. That's why we have the Boston Marathon bombing, despite the fact that the U.S. intel agencies were already aware that the Tsarnaevs had been radicalized. They were told by Russian authorities, they went to Chechnya and they got radicalized. You need to keep an eye on them because they're probably violent. The older brother was rambling about how great Al-Qaeda was in public on Facebook, no less, not even set to private. Anybody could have read it. All the other people on his friends list was like, he's praising Osama and fly the black flag and this sort of stuff. They still can't stop the attack from happening. He was publicly discussing this, messaging people at the same time to me, you need some pressure cookers. Yeah, let's get some ball bearings and nails and stuff like that. This would be, just be better than the 4th of July. We're going to the Boston Marathon. Nobody stops it. Nobody cares, apparently. This is how warped our intel agencies are. They haven't stopped a single attack. The FBI occasionally foils some people, usually after entrapping individuals who are too retarded to build bombs on their own. They give them some fake explosive, then they raid them. That's really going great lengths towards stopping terrorism in the country. You've got well-organized cells that know full well how to acquire these weapons and conduct attacks. And you can't stop them, but you can stop some retarded nerd who's really, really lonely and turns to Islam in time of need and says, I'm suicidal anyway. I might as well take some of these other people with me. You can stop them, but you can't stop actual ISIS members. Great. It makes everything here so much safer. But there's still a lot more safety here in the U.S. as opposed to over in Europe where people are disarmed and where the government's response is, we're going to regulate the internet and tamp down on hate speech. Because everyone knows this political ideology spawned off of one of the shards of Islam that was fractured off of it by a bunch of Saudi caliph wannabes. That will easily be stopped by more hate speech laws. Because if we crack down on hate speech, if people can't criticize religion, then these people who are blowing themselves up for religious reasons will magically stop. No, they won't. I'm sad to say this, but that's not going to work. It's not a real solution. You could try, guarding your borders. You could try attempting to root out the zealots that are actively planning attacks. Like I know in Europe, you don't have free expression and the right to privacy and things like that, generally speaking, especially under the EU's model. They just say, constitutions be damned, we're a post-national authority. We can violate these things all we want, and it doesn't matter. As long as we lord money over these governments' heads, it doesn't affect us. So I know you don't have that. So I would think that it would be acceptable to you for your governments to go after people who are proven zealots and try to prevent terrorism that way. Instead, their response is, our native population needs to be more silent because talking about our problems is a bad thing. So why bother voting for Theresa? You might as well vote for Corbyn, or whatever the fuck his name is at this point. Yeah, you'll ruin your economy. It'll muddy Brexit, but I mean, what's the point? Under Theresa May, you're gonna keep suffering for years, and it'll be like you never had a Brexit. You'll get it, but will your situation be any better? Doesn't even matter. You should be voting for UKIP. You should be casting aside idiots like Theresa May. It shouldn't be in office. I mean, if a person is a lunatic, why are they allowed to hold office? This might be Europe's problem. Let's regulate the internet more. Go after hate speech and get Facebook to regulate those live videos more. Get Twitter to police things more. It turns out they did their own analysis. This is a funny thing. And Twitter actually takes down content less often than Facebook and YouTube do. And YouTube is a relative bastion of free speech, honestly. So Twitter, I always considered it to be more heavily censored. It looks like it's actually not for the most part. Looks like Twitter's the more libertarian option in some ways. It surprised me, honestly. And this is from Europe, so I mean, they want to headhunt after these sites and regulate and tax them. And because the European governments want to act as though U.S. firms are somehow bound by their laws. You know what I would do if I were running any of these companies? And the UK said, okay, you need to start, cracking down on speech that we find unacceptable for our legal reasons. I'd tell them to screw themselves first. And then I'd just block their entire country. I'd tell their citizens, use a VPN if you want to use our services. Get on a proxy, because we're not going to bend over backwards for a small population in order to appease its leaders. Then I would go on a regular ad blitz over there and try to convince people to oust their government and elect somebody who has common sense. This isn't going to stop Islamic terrorism. It's not going to stop any type of violence. When you remove people's ability, I hate to say this for the pro-censorship crowd, when you remove people's ability to vent by talking in a hate-filled manner, which a lot of the speech on the net actually is, you drive them to violence. The internet reduces violence by giving people an outlet for their speech. They end up devolving into a circle jerk of people talking about how much they hate others, but they never actually take any action. These organized attacks are totally different from that. What you're trying to crack down on are people who are bitter and upset, or situationally or chronically. This will not crack down on groups that are organized for the sole purpose of conducting attacks in Europe. It's not going to stop a single terrorist event. It will never happen. Theresa May's snake oil salesman approach to this issue won't work. It won't keep the people of the UK safer, and they need to speak out against this, because actually it'll just endanger their culture more. It'll keep people from speaking out against the problem, which is the biggest problem, it seems, in the United Kingdom. People don't want to talk about their issues. They want to pretend that they don't exist. So she's crazy, and her opponent is crazy, and your legal system is crazy. You have problems, and you need to admit to that fact. Not cast people off as, oh, anti-British, oh, you hate the UK, for pointing out that, yeah, indeed, there are actually problems on your island. Because there are. North Ireland aside, of course, part of a smaller, separate island. And that's the truth of the matter. Theresa May's suggestion won't keep you safer. You're sacrificing liberty for no security. You're not even getting security out of it. Sometimes the government wants you to give them more power to oppress you in exchange for being a little bit safer. Sometimes that pans out. It's still a bad idea, but it has the effect that they're promising. This doesn't even do that. This will strip you of more liberty. You think that they're actually going to go after Islamic extremist content online? Nobody's going to flag it for being hate speech. Your population largely has been convinced that they're bigots if they do. It's not going to affect that material. There'll still be all sorts of nasheeds and people, doing the one-finger salute and things like waving the black flag. That'll be perfectly tolerated. It'll be people talking out against it who will end up getting prosecuted and kicked offline. And then these tech firms, their profits will decline. Things will get more expensive. They may have to turn to new forms of revenue. They'll be more heavily regulated, all because some European government that has its head up its ass decided it was a good idea. I think these U.S. tech firms, I think we need, here in the United States, to pass a constitutional amendment banning such groups from bowing before any foreign laws. They should be solely regulated by the U.S. Constitution. The government should allow them to abscond their duty to have to deal in an economic manner with foreign governments. That's the role of the federal government, quite clearly. The federal government, then, would be able to deal with the issue. The tech firms would be, they would no longer have any responsibility to deal with such things. That should be the way things work. And for a foreign state to threaten to fine a U.S. firm, I wouldn't pay the fine if I were running the company. I'd say, okay, well, we'll take our servers out of your country. Yeah, the UK doesn't need Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Go develop your own intranet and be like China. See how your population reacts. They're not going to do jack about it. The population there, if you deprive them of all social media based in the US, which is almost all social media, and they end up with a UK intranet, you realize how many people would be protesting then? They would actually get up and start protesting, and the government would fall. So it'd be pretty funny. We need an extremely free and open internet. We need less regulation on it than we have now, where people's opinions are respected, because even those hateful opinions coming from hateful people, as long as they're talking in a hateful manner, they are typically not acting in a hateful manner, beyond insulting people on the internet, which is going to happen anyway. It's called cyberbullying. Everyone's going to deal with it. Get used to it. I would say that groups that are organized for the purpose of killing people are a little bit worse than people who shout harassment online. Yeah, I think there's a difference. Theresa May may be too dumb to see it. I think there is. I think I might be in the majority in my opinion on that specific topic. That's about all. Peace out.